Hey everyone, we're here for our next session, which is with Polkadot. They'll be doing a talk on growing DeFi ecosystem of Polkadot. And I'll let him take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Emre. I am a technical educator from the Web Foundation, and I'm here to talk to you about the growing DeFi ecosystem in Polkadot. So firstly, I'd like to talk to you guys about what Polkadot is for anybody that's unfamiliar. Polkadot is an ecosystem and a blockchain that has a specific philosophy of Web3. It's that a belief in a decentralized open internet where users can control their own data, their identity, and own those things, and therefore control their destiny. Any of the decentralized technologies and the protocols that are being built in the Polkadot ecosystem tend to kind of follow this philosophy. Our founders are Dr. Gavin Wood, co-founder of Ethereum. The Polkadot project started in 2016. So before that, he was working on Ethereum. And then since 2016, he's been working on Polkadot. Robert Habermeyer, who's a Thiel Fellow and one of the leading developers in the protocol. And Peter, who is no longer with the organizations, but is one of the founders. And so the two organizations that really drive the development behind Polkadot are the Web3 Foundation, where there's technical education, such the team that I'm on, grants, as well as the research team that does any of the research that go into what the algorithms kind of get developed by looking at. And then Parity, the Parity Technologies team is a much larger development business product team that does most of the development of the Polkadot protocols. So what is Polkadot? Polkadot is a layer 0 heterogeneous multi-chain. And what those things mean is we can think of any application-specific blockchain as a layer 1, such as Bitcoin, which has a specific application of being a payment system, though, you know, that was its original kind of like peer-to-peer cash system, and it's being used differently. However, it has like kind of this layer 1 architecture. Ethereum is a general purpose layer 1 chain. ETH 2.0 is going to be something more of a layer 0 that has sharding and a proof of stake system. And but currently ETH as a proof of work system is a layer 1 that enables creation of generic tokens. So what a layer 0 does is it takes those heterogeneous chains that have their own consensus mechanisms, and it connects them via this relay chain architecture. And this relay chain architecture has a security that is backed by its consensus mechanism. In the case of Polkadot, this is a proof of stake mechanism, a nominated proof of stake, which is a flavor of proof of stake that allows validators to nominate, that allows token holders to nominate validators. So you don't have to run your own validator to become a part of the validator stack. And that security that is gained through the consensus mechanism is then propagated across to all the connected chains. So if you're what we would call a relay chain connecting to Polkadot, you therefore connect to this existing security. This is huge because before that, you would have to have either buy into an existing network's mechanism, like design philosophy and consensus mechanisms, such as being an ERC20 token on Ethereum. You therefore have to deal with Ethereum's throughput, even if the throughput is not about your token. It might just be some NFT release. This is a method. This parachain relay chain relationship is a method of sharding. So you're separating the the application specific chains and letting them choose their own consensus mechanisms and their design and their tokenomics, but still allowing them to connect to this relay chain that allows for pooled security and the communication of those chains, this interoperability of those chains. So that's essentially what Polkadot allows. Through the DOT token, you can, so the DOT token is a utility token. The tokenomics of it is that you can utilize this token to participate in on-chain governance. So if nobody knows, Polkadot is the largest by treasury. There's an on-chain treasury DAO that is also a sovereign blockchain. So you can think of Polkadot as this massive DAO where DOT token holders and relay chains can participate on-chain governance and propose different changes to the runtime. And it has to go through this governance process, which the DOT token allows you to vote for certain things or reject certain things that the community might propose as a runtime update. You can participate in staking, so you can participate in the consensus mechanism, the staking portion of it, and you can bond your tokens to participate in the crowd loans that parachains run to occupy parachain slots. So they try to increase their likelihood of winning a parachain slot by running crowd loans. It's kind of you can think of it as a better way of doing ICOs. Previously, ICOs, you would have to just send a token to some address and hope that you hear back. In this case, you bond your token on the relay chain to show support for certain products that are going to become parachains, and that bonded token will get returned to your same address at the end of the lease period for that parachain because they lease slots and they have to keep winning the leases as they expire. Generally, 2-year leases on Polkadot are what we're seeing. Great. So why are we doing Polkadot? As I talked about, kind of this like interoperability layer allows for the composability of layer ones. The pooled security, now you can just test out your ideas on the test nets, and then the Canary network, Kusama, where most ideas get tested first. So the tokenomics, this game theoretic side of things that can't be tested in just regular test networks, will be tested on a real value bearing network, and that is Kusama. And then before it comes to Polkadot, which is kind of like all the tested, audited, proven ideas to work. And then now they can actually like be composed together to build really valuable decentralized applications. So again, this like not caring about the consensus mechanisms of the heterogeneous connected chains is also massive, because it gives the teams the ultimate freedom to develop their network as they see fit. And this idea of on-chain governance, that all the runtime updates and upgrades will go through a form of on-chain governance before it gets included in one of the upcoming blocks. And once that block is added to the canonical longest chain, it becomes a part of the runtime updates. That is known as forkless upgrades. Cool. So the ecosystem, the relay chain has been around since May of 2020. However, parachains were released on Polkadot in the December of 2021. So now we're about 6 months into the world of parachains, and we are seeing a bunch of cool new ideas come into the ecosystem. A lot of these technologies could have been their own ERC20 token before, their own sovereign chain before, and they're choosing to become a parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem because of those benefits that I just told you about previously. And we're seeing a lot of cool DeFi protocols that are kind of coming up in this realm. So I'd like to really quickly just go over like what makes a good DeFi application, right? So what is the kind of imperative things that a team building a DeFi protocol should be kind of reaching for. One of those things, as recent events showed, and probably one of the first things that will get regulated when regulation comes down, maybe this year, is the idea of the stable currency. So the stable currency needs to be strong, and strong can be kind of interpreted as well designed, well developed, well tested. Especially if it's an algorithmic stablecoin, it needs to be well audited. So there's already been some mistakes in the DeFi world that we can learn from as we develop newer and better stable currencies. So that's one of the most imperative things, right? The next thing will be that this idea of secure on-chain investment mechanisms, especially if the DeFi protocols are taking custody of your initial tokens, and especially if they are doing some sort of a synthetic asset. These things need to be secure. These things need to be well tested before. And Polkadot and Kusama and this just the greater ecosystem allows for that type of testing of ideas and game theoretic things that happen when you deal with real valuable assets that hold real value. And the idea of transparency. These algorithms are open sourced. It's important that they stay that way and that they can be audited by anyone. So that is one of the pillars of open source development and the blockchain movement in general, is the idea of this transparency. No longer do we have to deal with closed systems that are audited behind closed doors. If anybody wants to run their audit on the Polkadot runtime or any of the DeFi protocols that are already running as parachains, you can just look at the GitHub code base and do that. So those are kind of the important things. So what are some of the live DeFi parachains on Polkadot right now? Akala is also the first parachain that's won the first parachain slot. I forgot how much they raised. However, I think it was the third biggest crowdfunded project ever, behind I think EOS back in the day was the highest crowdfunded project. And then there was like one other thing, and Akala. So it's like in the billions of dollars worth of DOT tokens. Akala has a stable currency that they were developing for a little while, and that's gone live recently. And to mint those stable currencies, they have multiple collateral assets that you can use, such as Akala token, DOT token, and they're trying to also grow their collateralization pool of available assets that you can use to mint the what the stable currency on Akala is called AUSD. So to mint AUSD. And then we have other protocols that supply different types of DeFi kind of tools that allow you to create value with your existing tokens. Equilibrium is one of them. Parallel Finance. Parallel Finance won, I think, one of the first 6 parachain slots, and they have some interesting kind of tools that you can use to interact with the greater Polkadot ecosystem using your DOT token. Especially if you want to participate in these crowd loans that I talked about. Parallel Finance offers different types of services for that. Centrifuge. Centrifuge was a project that's been around for a while, and what they are trying to do is to take real world assets and create synthetic assets that represent them on chain. So there's a few projects that are trying to do that and then allow those to be like collateral for DeFi, which is really cool. It seems to be one of the first attempts to really like bridge the physical and the digital assets in this like kind of ecosystem or economy, I guess is the better term. HydraDX, Interlay's main product is a BTC bridge. So they have a synthetic token called InterBTC, and InterBTC allows essentially you create InterBTC by putting in your Bitcoin into the Interlay protocol, and they create the InterBTC, and now you can actually use that InterBTC on anything, any type of DeFi platform that can come to mind. That's the goal of Interlay, is to kind of be this cross-chain DeFi tool for your Bitcoins. And Clover Finance was previously, I think, an ERC20 token. Now they are a parachain on Polkadot. So these are just some of like the few things. Again, this recent issue with UST and Luna showed us that algorithmic stablecoins can be problematic. So what did we learn? It's really important to have a diverse collateralization pool. It's really important that algorithmic stablecoins are well audited, because if they're not well designed, they have a large attack surface, and if they fail like Terra USD did, they can lead to kind of distrust in the ecosystem. And this idea of multi-chain future, where the collateralization is also multi-chain and even resting in some real world assets, will create stronger stable currencies and hence more legitimate DeFi projects, which is kind of what we're seeing in some of these projects. And I just wanted to add, just kind of like for those developers or techies out there building on Polkadot, if you are running a parachain, then that means you are building using Rust and Substrate. So parachains are only one way to interact and build on Polkadot. There's different ways that are, so Parathreads is kind of like a pay-as-you-go type way of running a service on Polkadot that still utilizes the pooled security and the interoperability. You can also develop your own chains, Substrate-based, Rust and Substrate-based chains, and build bridges to Polkadot. So you don't have to be a parachain. And as we're seeing, the smart contract world in the ecosystem is also growing. So that's going to propel the DeFi system, ecosystem even more. You can run your like EVM smart contracts on parachains that have a EVM runtime, such as Moonbeam. So if you have some Ethereum smart contracts that you want to, whether you're using Solidity or Viper, if you want to put it on to use those in the Polkadot ecosystem, you can. You can also develop smart contracts using WASM, WebAssembly. So WASM is kind of one of the pillars of how Polkadot is built, especially in the runtime updates. The runtime upgrades are enabled by WASM. The WASM blob is included, which is the whole runtime logic is included on chain. It lives on chain. And you can also use the smart contract platform language called Ink, which is a native smart contract scripting language from the ecosystem. And probably we'll see most interoperable decentralized applications that are composing multiple parachains to be using some or the Ink or some of the other smart contract tools available to write programs that utilize multiple heterogeneous chains. So yeah, the Substrate is the framework. If you're new to the Web3 world, if you're coming from the Web2 world, you can think of Substrate as like React for building blockchains. Like React is JavaScript framework for building UIs. And Substrate is a Rust framework for building blockchains. We've been building blockchains for over a decade now. So some of the boilerplate code, things that are going to be included in any blockchain runtime, are easily made available on Substrate through what are called palettes. You can kind of like use these as Lego pieces, like building blocks to develop your runtime. Just pick and choose what is important for your application, and you can spin up a runtime, your own blockchain quite easily. And if there's, no palette that satisfies your application specific need, developing frame palettes on Substrate is also quite ergonomic and easy. Again, Substrate is this kind of like this modular framework. Seamless integration comes with on-chain governance out of the box, essentially allowing us to customize and build, like giving us the ultimate tools to build exactly what we need. It's very granular. You're not buying into any type of design decisions by using Substrate.
So we have 1 minute.
Cool. So that's pretty much all I have. And Substrate is enabling all those DeFi projects that I talked about. So if you'd like to get involved in the ecosystem, there's a lot of ways to do it. You can run a node or a nomination, become a nominator. So, you can participate in the proof of stake. You can help out by reaching out to one of our open source code bases by looking at an issue. Or if you're more interested in kind of becoming a developer in the ecosystem, we have a lot of ways to do that. So getting through Discord channels, hackathons that we put together around the globe. And at the end of this month, we have our biggest conference, Polkadot Decoded, on the 29th and 30th. If you Google Polkadot Decoded, and I'll put it in the chat, you should be able to get involved. And it's going to be streamed live, so you can see it from anywhere in the world. And with that, thank you.
Thanks so much. This was great. We're going to transition to our next session now. All right.